Our next shop, many people walk by thinking it is merely a paint store. But Guerra Paint Pigment is a place where anyone can come in and actually make their own paints. And as you're about to see, whether you're a world-renowned artist or just someone painting their living room, there's plenty of reasons to do it yourself. Sometimes a person is compelled to start a business because of their own needs as a consumer. Guerra Paint Pigment is one of those places. Created because one man thought there clearly must be a better way. On the surface, it looks like just a paint shop. But look closer, and one sees an assortment of brightly colored bottles and vials, neatly stacked from floor to ceiling, like some kind of hyperchromatic chemistry lab or psychedelic pharmacy. Guerra's specialty is pigments. Be it for vinyl, acrylic, watercolor, or many other paints, customers have over 200 powdered or liquid pigment concentrates to choose from. Founder and co-owner Art Guerra got the idea to start his pigment supply shop in the 1970s when he couldn't find any quality paints.
I got hired by CETA, which was Jimmy Carter's giving artists in New York City jobs. I was the first government-hired artist to do murals since the WPA back in the 30s. I went out and bought sign painting paints. The one thing that there was a big gallon can of this beautiful dark red. I added a little bit of white to the red and it turned gray, and I was like, what is this? You know, I couldn't figure it out. So I phoned up the company and made it, and they said, oh, we added a little bit of black to make the red darker. And I was like, what? That's not how you make a color darker.
No.
Becoming a bit of a pigment connoisseur for the New York City art world, he decided to open up a shop in the East Village in 1984.
First store became quite a little hangout, and all of a sudden people were discovering me. And one of the reasons they were discovering me is because East 13th was one of the biggest drug blocks in New York, and so artists would come down here to get their drugs, and they'd go like, huh, look at this little store. You know, and they'd come in, and so I'd give them a demonstration. They would always be floored because it was such an instant thing to make your own paint like that.
Now, along with co-owners Jody Bretnall and Sarah Morey, they are supplying pigments worldwide. Their products have been used on everything from stage sets for the New York Metropolitan Opera and Cirque du Soleil to even Lady Gaga's concert tour piano. Now, why go to all the trouble of making your own paint? Besides being just plain fun, it's also about quality and control. For there is a little dirty secret in the paint world. Over-the-counter paint is not all that great. Core ingredients like raw pigment and resin are expensive, so it is no surprise that some manufacturers skimp, leaving customers with a paint that is hard to control and fades fast.
If you're using a pre-made paint, you can't really add the color. You're using what you have bought. With this, you actually add as much color as you want, so you can make it very, very vibrant. So the paint you put down is true to how you put it down. In other words, if you put it down big and thick, it's going to stay that way. It's not going to collapse and shrink.
Guerra does not actually make the pigments themselves. They are more, as they like to say, a depository for pigments. For you see, the world of pigment manufacturing is a complicated one. Pure pigments are not just dialed up on a computer like something on Photoshop. Most are created for a specific application by a specific company. Pigments are being discovered and becoming extinct all the time due to demand and cost effectiveness.
Color Buicks of the 50s. 50s and 60s, we have the last 200 pounds of that pigment.
Many pigments are first developed by companies for the auto industry due to their need for high quality and durability. This puts Guerra on a perpetual treasure hunt, going to the ends of the earth for pigments. And sometimes it is a case of one man's junk is another man's treasure.
I learned, phone up a lot of these old paint companies and see what they have. see if they happen to have any old pigments they don't want. And so I would phone them up, and they'd say, sure, we have a whole corner full of old stuff that we don't want.
Art and I were able to, this year, get 1,000 pounds of a blue that we got from Germany that was going to go into the automotive industry. And it didn't make it into the industry. It just wasn't accepted. And so we got 1,000 pounds of it. And that is the Pigment Blue 80. And that's right here, benzimidazole R5R. That was going to be on, like, super high-end, Porsches and stuff like that.
And let us not forget crap green. What's the story behind that color?
This, we buy all our cobalts from the Shepherd Color Company, and when they clean out their pigment tanks, this is the color they get. So this is a mixture, and they sell it, and they think it's very funny that we call it crap green. I don't know what other people buy it for, but we sell it to artists, and they love it. It's very popular.
Be it crap green or any of their other pigments, each is represented on their enormous color chart. Once a customer makes their selection, the owners are almost insistent on giving first-time users a quick lesson on how to mix pigments. Artists, designers, average Joes, just about anyone looking for color comes to Guerra Paint Pigment. Guerra Paint Pigment is open regular business hours and closed on Sundays. Their website is loaded with paint making tips and techniques, not to mention a list of all their pigments.